Good evening. I must say that it looks especially good to actually see you all today. And for those that are streaming from home, we're glad that you've joined us. This is actually the first and the last time that Martha and I will be addressing you in this manner after 2 years in person and in our new hybrid mode. 2 years ago, we started on Zoom, and what an experience it has been. We have our Zoom administrator, Jeff Davis. Well, he asked me why I kept turning my head on the Zoom, and I believed I was talking to you all in your individual box, maybe up in the right-hand corner. But then he told me, he says, well, you know, the camera's not following you, and it looks like your head is turning very awkwardly.
And I found that even though I thought I had turned off every phone and every device within earshot, something always binged during a meeting. It was very, very embarrassing, but we've learned a lot, all of us have, over the years. We have a lot on the agenda today, so let's get started. First, I'd like to tell you about an exciting new policy that the Circle has put into effect that will assure a permanent resource for the health and work of the Circle and its legacy, through lifetime and legacy gifts. Jeff, are we ready for the PowerPoint? Thank you. The steering committee approved the creation of a gift planning visioning committee because Susan and I had been receiving phone calls from people who wanted to know how they could make a gift to the Circle. So we knew that we needed to have a plan to respond. The Gift Planning Visioning Committee was staffed by members with expertise in the fields of finance and estate planning, and it met over the course of a year. The committee members were Lynn Sasson, Connie Baker, Linda Blonsley, Susan Katzenberg, Francine Krumholtz, Jillian Pinkert, Eileen Toohey, and Susan and I were ex officio members. Jeff, next slide, please. You're looking at the committee's charge, which was to come up with a plan for responding to inquiries about gifts to the Circle, specifically bearing in mind the history and culture of the Circle, such as that we do not solicit gifts and we don't have fundraising campaigns. Next slide, please, Jeff. The committee met for more than a year and considered a lot of different options for different kinds of gifts, and also bearing in mind, of course, the financial benefits to the Circle. After meeting for a year, the committee put together a recommendation, and then we called a special section of the steering committee, so there would be plenty of time for people on the steering committee, having received the proposals in advance, to ask any questions that they had. After that, in the next steering committee meeting, the proposal was adopted unanimously. The main points are for a special gift fund to receive unrestricted cash gifts of $10,000 and more, with a committee to decide when and how to spend those funds. This is new. The earlier gift application policy required that the steering committee vote on the use of each gift that came in over $500, whereas now all unrestricted gifts under $10,000 will go directly to the grants fund. And many of you may not know, but we do get many, many gifts over and above the membership contribution each year. The second recommendation was to establish an endowment fund to ensure that the needs of the Circle in the future are met. This endowment has been funded. The Gift Planning Committee worked with special attention to the culture of the Circle. We will use no part of the membership contribution for endowment. We will not solicit gifts. We will not use money from the grants pool. We will not use money from the operating fund, and we will never have super members. But what we will do is provide information for those who would like to contribute to the Circle to be able to do so easily. Next slide, please, Jeff. A very important part of this plan is that members will be able easily to find information on the website, whether to make a current cash gift or to make another lifetime or estate gift. The website is in the process of being updated to reflect these changes. We'd like to give special thanks to the members of the Gift Planning Visioning Committee for their careful work to benefit the Circle and its mission of helping women and children in the Baltimore area achieve self-sufficiency. Thank you. Susan?
Well, Martha and I were honored to be asked to be co-chairs of the Giving Circle. And 2 years later, we come away with many different feelings. It was so satisfying to serve as co-chairs. And it makes the effort so worthwhile, not only to work with our members, but to be able to support the grantees. We've learned a lot, and we've worked with some extraordinary people. Our membership is at an all-time high. Along with the support we've been able to offer our grantees in this difficult time. All these accomplishments couldn't have been possible without the work of each and every one of you. We want to thank you for demonstrating what it means to put service above self. The steering committee and their committees worked hard, and we'd like to have you please stand as we call your names and spotlight some of the accomplishments of your committees. We ask that you remain standing until all your names are called. And first, we have education with Laura Hahn and Susan Manikin. They had hosted 14 speakers on the subject of healthcare disparities this year on Zoom that were open to all Circle members. In communications, we have Amy Babel and Peggy Spar, who have greatly expanded our social media presence, and Grantee Connect, chaired by Suzanne Daggert and Sylvia Golumbach. They started a Google group this year with over 40 of our grantees. Okay, you've never heard of a Google group, admit it, but this is an online sharing group that people with common interest. And grants was chaired by Mary Jo Weiss and Jane Burko. They managed our entire grants process along with the new bias training for our readers.
Membership was co-chaired by Sally Ward and Jennifer Bedford, and it created a new membership initiative allowing optional reduced membership for members 45 years and younger. And also, as Susan just said, we've had an all-time high of 469 members. Nominating was co-chaired by Carol Doctorow, Penny Wald, and Lisa Field, and they filled positions with wonderful candidates and offered also a new Pathways to Leadership session for those who were interested. Post Grants was co-chaired by Wendy Cronmiller and Robin Kaplan, and that committee followed the progress of and supported all 23 grantees. And the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee was chaired by Vivian Manikin and Cricket Wollison, and it expanded its committee and recently offered an education opportunity to the entire membership, with more coming in the future. Could you please give all of these women a round of applause?
And lastly, to our officers, the Treasurer, Bonnie Stamen, and Assistant Treasurer, Kelly Chu, for keeping our budget well-balanced and healthy. And we have our Secretary, Georgia King, and our Archivist, Leslie Glickman, for keeping our records in such good order. So we want you to check out the Circle Library because it's really full of information and it's very well organized. We also wanted to thank some of the women who work behind the scenes that never get the spotlight. Thanks to Kathy Newman, Marianne Pinkert, Kelly Chu, Anita Pomerantz, and Renee Gordon. We literally could not do it without these ladies. And lastly, we especially want to thank Jeff Davis for guiding us as we used our new technology. Many thanks to the Baltimore Community Foundation for its untiring support for more than 20 years now. And this year they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. And now we have a special treat from our post-grants, following up with a couple of our grantees and what accomplishments you're going to hear about.
I'm Robin Kaplan, one of the co-chairs of the Post Grants Committee. While you're watching this on tape, we recently had the opportunity to actually spend time in person with the folks you're about to meet. And it's been taped by our in-house cinematographer, Wendy Kronmiller, who, lucky for me, is my PG co-chair. We're thrilled to introduce you to two of the 2021-22 grantees and hope to give you an idea of the wonderful work they've been doing this year. First, you'll meet Rachel Neal, the Director of Community Service with GEDCO Cares. And who would be better to interview Rachel than our post-grants liaisons, Joan Cohen and Jackie Donowitz, who've been working with GEDCO Cares this past year. Ladies?
Hi, Rachel. It's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Let me start by asking you, what have you done with the grant money that the Giving Circle has given you this year? Has it enabled you to do, and what could you not have done if you hadn't had the grant?
Sure. So we used the money, most of the money, just for direct service eviction prevention. So we were helping people pay their rent when they had threat of eviction. And so most specifically, there are 28 women whose rent we paid who stayed housed, who wouldn't have. It was part of our larger eviction prevention program where since July, 210 families have received funds from us that kept them housed. So it was really an important part of that. And it's just it's pieced together with the other funding that we've had. It's enabled us not to turn anyone away this year. There have other years we've had, when people come for help, sometimes we have funding and sometimes we don't for eviction, and it's nice not to have to say, sorry, we're out of funds. It really made a huge difference this year of all years when there's been such a big need.
And so what has inspired you to be here and work with these people and work with this program?
Well, I do find it inspiring here almost every day because the people who come for help, they are so strong. The women who come to us who are facing these huge problems, they're just showing so much strength, and I see them dealing with, figuring out how to get help from us and many other agencies too at the same time, and keeping their head up. And many of them do come back to us afterwards to say, thank you, I'm back on my feet. Some people come back and actually volunteer here. And that keeps you going. Stuff like that.
And is there anything else you'd like the Giving Circle to know about you? About either donating product or...
Well, yeah, so we, in addition to the eviction prevention, we have the food pantry. And we always need donations of groceries and grocery bags. Actually, right this minute, we're low on grocery bags, so that would be something, especially sturdy ones. And so we give out groceries. We have help with utility bill assistance for people who have their power's about to be turned off or has been turned off. We have a job search program. And some of the people who come for financial assistance find out about our job search program and sign up on the spot. And that's another important thing that we do. We're always looking for volunteers in that program, people who want to work one-on-one with job seekers through that process of making a resume and putting in the applications. So basically, I want people to know that we do a lot of stuff and we need a lot of help, volunteers and donations.
Thank you. And thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Through the magic of videography and Jeff Davis, we're here with Nick Brooks and Kat Sipes of Soccer Without Borders, Maryland, who'll be talking with Wendy, who's one of our post-grants liaisons for the program, along with Barbara Epke.
Hey guys, it's so good to see you in person. And I'm so sorry that Barbara couldn't make it. Yep.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
It's great to see you.
So we have a few questions for you, and thank you for your time on this rainy afternoon when the kids can't be out. What has the Circle Grant allowed Soccer Without Borders to do that you otherwise might not have been able to do?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle Grant has allowed us to do is really just grow our staff and really being able to focus our staff on building and growing our girls program. So as we're trying to grow our girls program, one of the most important things is making sure that they have female and women role models. So whether that's program managers like myself, coordinators, up to us coaches, volunteers who are coming all the time. It kind of just trickles all the way down, and really providing those positions, I think, grows the whole program and really empowers girls to continue coming.
Could you tell us a little bit about your history, your personal history with the program, and what brings you here every day?
Yeah, so I actually started with Soccer Without Borders about 8 years ago as a volunteer. I was looking for any kind of opportunity with a sports-based youth development program, some way to connect with young people in our community and give back a little bit. And I heard about our family mentoring program at Soccer Without Borders, which essentially matches volunteers with entire families and specifically with young folks in the program that just need a little bit more support in their journey to acclimating to life in Baltimore and forming a new life in these new communities of theirs. It was a life-changing experience. I learned so much from the young people that I worked with.
And Kat?
Yeah, actually similar to Nick, I also started as a volunteer. So also similar to Nick, around 8 years ago, I started volunteering just with the high school boys, doing academic support on the weekends. And I like to think of it as kind of a parallel growth. So as the organization grew, I also was just trying to grow in my own position professionally, and that kind of ended up being what the girls program is today. So the program grew and grew and supported more and more girls and women, and we also on the same side grew and supported women coaches and staff as well. So as the female coaching and staff support grew, we were able to support more girls. So yeah, kind of started with high school boys, went through the middle school program, co-ed programs as well, into our summer programs, and am now coaching the high school girls.
Well, that's great. Really, just in closing, could you give us an example of a success story or something that you're proud of?
Sure. So just to frame, our three big pillars at Soccer Without Borders are soccer and sport engagement, education, and community building. And everything that Coach Kat just talked about is so true about the close relationships that many young folks have formed starting in middle school and now are in high school. So it's incredibly powerful to see, especially with the support of groups like the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, what we can do from the lens of community building. Going out to different events, being able to accept invitations to different spaces, put 40 kids onto a bus and just allow the relationships and the touch points that our coaches and volunteers and mentors have to just really form the closest and best experiences for young people. It's been really great to see firsthand what can happen when we all kind of get back in person and all the energy that's in this community, what we can do when we just have more flexibility to go out and explore this community together and really grow. I know Kat knows a lot about that experience.
Yeah, I think a big success story and just something that I'm very proud of is and actually one of the participants is right here in the middle. Her name's Aya. Her and another participant, Layla. When I was with the middle school program, it was a co-ed program. So girls were competing with and against boys. And they kind of just like self-led, self-motivated, wanted to form this all-girls team. And they self-named themselves GG, which stands for Girls' Generation. So I kind of started with them in middle school, and they have since grown. They're juniors now in high school, so they have grown a tremendous amount, just like on the field and off the field, as leaders, as support for their teammates, and really just throughout the whole community. And it's been amazing to watch them grow and just remember kind of how they started as a group together.
Yeah, and there is nothing better than watching some of those high school girls coach the new generation of GG and those new middle school girls kind of learning from that mentorship.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Well, great. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
We hope that this Post-Grants Road Tour has inspired you. It was such a challenge to select only 2 grantees to showcase. The past 2 years have been such a challenge to all nonprofit organizations. They've had to pivot and adapt just to keep their doors open. Their works are more important than ever, though. So thanks to all Circle members for your continued support of these good works in our community. We also want to especially thank our post-grant liaisons. Throughout the pandemic, you have been there with our grant recipients. Establishing and keeping connections in a remote world is hard. We've had to find the right Zoom link. We've had to find the mute button. We've had to find it again to unmute. We look forward to working with you again next year and being back together soon.
The end. You can stop.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Robin, for putting that together. It's just always wonderful to hear the success stories. And now we are going to hear from Mary Jo and Jane and Marianne, what we've all been waiting for, the grantees for this year.
Before we start, we just want to thank our 91 grant readers who once again this year showed incredible dedication and diligence and thoughtfulness. So if you were a grant reader, would you please stand and let us thank you? Okay, so now the exciting news.
Wait, we don't have our slide up. Jeff?
We are going to do our slides by category. And the first category we have is advocacy. And by the way, you'll note that we have an asterisk beside the name of any group that this is the first time we funded them. You'll notice there's a number of them. In advocacy, we funded CASA of Baltimore County, Fostering Futures Project. CASA of Baltimore County will use its $25,000 grant for its Women's Initiative, an expansion of the Fostering Futures program that trains and supports volunteers to meet the needs of older, vulnerable youth in foster care, helping them to prepare for self-sufficient lives. And we'll also be hopefully funding Prepare. Prepare provides information about, materials for, and in-person support with parole hearings and with preparation for re-entry into society after incarceration. Prepare will spend the grant to partially fund a re-entry specialist, a critical role in ensuring every woman's successful reacclimation into society. We do have one note. We just want to let you know that this funding for Prepare is contingent on their fiscal agent submitting the necessary final documentation. To date, this has not been done. However, we have given Prepare a grace period to submit these missing documents, and they have contacted the fiscal sponsor and are confident this process will soon be completed.
Okay. And our next category of domestic and sexual violence. The first is for Ballet After Dark. This first-time funded grantee will receive $25,000 to fund its project. Ballet After Dark was created as a holistic approach to providing trauma survivors with programming that restores autonomy and allows the participants to reclaim their lives following sexual assault and domestic trauma. Initially aimed at exposing Black and brown trauma survivors to the discipline of classical ballet as a healing modality, Ballet After Dark will use its funds to expand its programming options for youth and younger women. The Family Crisis Center of Baltimore County, also a first-time funded grantee, will receive $15,000 for general operating expenses. The Family Crisis Center of Baltimore County serves all of Baltimore County, which, for the past 5 years, has the highest number of domestically related crimes in all Maryland counties. Grant funds will be used to deliver services to adults and dependent children who are the primary and secondary victims of domestic violence. The Crisis Center provides 24/7, 365 a day, hotline and emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, victim advocacy, follow-up and stabilization services, outreach and education, and counseling for the entire family, including the abuser. The House of Ruth received $25,000 to support general operating expenses, and with that grant, the House of Ruth will fund its emergency shelter program. This offers stability services, including safe job navigation, on-site healthcare services, and overall service coordination to their shelter residents, thus reducing the need for the victim to return to an abusive partner.
The next category is food and hunger services. The Farm Alliance of Baltimore. The Farm Alliance will use its BWGC funding for its core mission of empowering community members, a majority women and all in Baltimore City, to feed, teach, and provide safe green growing spaces for their neighborhoods with urban farms and gardens. The food grown promotes healthy eating for neighbors whose access to fresh produce is limited. Next is the Park Heights Saint Community Center. This is a first-time group. Park Heights Saints Community Center provides wraparound services, including resources for the children and families of the Park Heights community. In 2019, they opened a community center in the heart of Park Heights that offers after-school education programs for children in grades 1 through 8. They also operate a community food pantry to help combat hunger in this area. The awarded funds will be used to cover the cost of the community center's utilities, cleaning supplies, and cleaning service, as well as food, snacks, and beverages for the after-school tutoring program. And the last one in this category is Feeding the Flock, another first-time recipient. Feeding the Flock seeks to alleviate food insecurity through the distribution of groceries. They also provide assistance to clients in accessing social services and employment information. They help all those who knock on their door, regardless of age, sex, race, creed, color, political affiliation, religious beliefs, cultural diversity, or sexual preference. During 2021, Feeding the Flock's clients' numbers increased dramatically. The requested funds will purchase non-perishable food as well as meat and dairy products to meet this increased demand.
And for the next category of health services, Healthcare for the Homeless received $20,000 for general operating expenses. The Healthcare for the Homeless works to prevent and end homelessness for the vulnerable individuals and families by providing quality, integrated health care and promoting access to affordable housing and sustainable incomes through direct service, advocacy, and community engagement. The next one is the Pro Bono Counseling Project. They received $25,000 for a project for culturally responsive counseling for immigrant women and their families. The Pro Bono Counseling Project's mission is to ensure that Marylanders with limited resources requesting mental health care are provided access to volunteer, licensed mental health professionals and other necessary supportive services. The Circle's funding will expand the organization's work through a project focusing on immigrant women and their families in the Baltimore metro area by conducting outreach in immigrant communities, recruiting volunteers who have the cultural knowledge and language skills to serve these populations, and providing education to their volunteers to improve their ability to serve these women.
The next category is housing. Intersection of Change is a community-based nonprofit focused on community development in West Baltimore, including the Sandtown, Winchester, and Uptown areas. BWGC grant funds will be used to support the program director position at Martha's Place, which is a long-term recovery house program for 15 to 20 women who are overcoming substance abuse and homelessness. Rebuilding Together Baltimore is a safe and healthy housing and community revitalization organization that provides critical home repairs to owner-occupied households. Our funding will focus on providing safe and healthy housing repairs for low-income female homeowners in Baltimore, thus enabling these women to stay in their homes and age in place. And St. Vincent de Paul of Baltimore, Sarah's Hope Family Shelter, which works to ensure those impacted by poverty have the skills, resources, and opportunity to achieve their full potential. BWGC funding will support Sarah's Hope, a 24-hour, 36-room shelter for homeless families, the only shelter in the Baltimore area that accommodates intact families, families headed by men, and two-generation families.
Okay. In the category of literacy and education, Goucher Prison Education Partnership received $25,000 for general operating expenses. The Goucher Prison Education Partnership provides an excellent college education to students incarcerated in Maryland. As they earn that education, students empower themselves as scholars and leaders. Students' hard work and their academic accomplishments impact not only their own futures, but also their families and their communities, both within and outside of the prison. The Circle's funds will support Goucher's program at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women in Jessup, Maryland. The Hamden Family Center received $25,000 for their after-school enrichment program. The Hamden Family Center mission is to enrich the lives of Hamden residents through education and professional support and to encourage individual growth and community fellowship. The Circle's funds will support the operational cost of the after-school enrichment program, also known as ASEP, for the 2022-23 school year. ASEP serves working families often led by single women who need a safe place for their children to receive academic support and access to engaging after-school activities. The Immigration Outreach Service Center received $15,000 to expand their computer literacy program for immigrant women. The Immigration Outreach Service is an independent nonprofit organization created in 2001 to serve the needs of Baltimore immigrants. Their mission is to partner with and empower immigrants with a safe, secure environment, regardless of immigration status, race, ethnicity, sexual identity, or religious affiliation, and to walk with them on their journey to rebuild their lives successfully. The Circle's grant will fund computer classes for immigrant women in Baltimore. Computer literacy can promote greater opportunity and employment, for accessing health and other resources, and for socialization, all of which can help to mitigate the acculturation stress. And finally, in this category, the community school received $20,000 for general operating expenses. The community school is a nonprofit, state-certified academic mentoring, non-public high school for at-risk and disadvantaged youth in Baltimore City and County. The Baltimore Women Giving Circle funds will be used for general operation of the community school, academic and mentoring high school to ensure it remains inaccessible to any student for whom a small, rigorous, and supportive learning environment will help her or him to succeed academically and to develop habits towards personal growth.
Workforce development. These may be out of order, I'm sorry. I'm not sure mine are alphabetized, well, I'll try to alphabetize them, okay. Empower Her Network received a grant. Empower Her Network collaborates with survivors of human trafficking who find themselves in the same vulnerable circumstances that led to their initial exploitation. By removing housing barriers, financing education, and uncovering employment opportunities. The awarded funds will support life-transforming empowerment plans for human trafficking survivors on Empower Her Network's waiting list in Baltimore. Helping Up Mission provides hope to people experiencing homelessness, poverty, or addiction by meeting their physical, psychological, social, and spiritual needs. BWGC funds will be used to hire an education and workforce development director to expand HUM services to women in its year-long program. The Maryland Food Bank's mission is feeding people, strengthening communities, and ending hunger for Marylanders. Our funds will support MFB's Food Works culinary training program to train women for successful careers in culinary and hospitality industries. Empower Tech Fundamentals. Empower creates pathways to economic prosperity by launching digital careers for military veterans and young adults from underserved communities. This grant will allow Empower to provide dedicated staff time specifically for the recruitment and retention of female students and allow them access to the well-paying, tech-enabled jobs that provide the stability and security they deserve. And then finally, Pivot. The Pivot Women's Reentry and Workforce Development Program helps close the revolving door of incarceration for women in Baltimore. The program provides an 8-week training program, which includes courses in life skills, job readiness, physical, mental, and financial wellness. Our funds will allow Pivot to cover items and services needed by the women that are not covered by other more restrictive grants. For example, the cost of childcare to allow a woman to attend a job interview.
And finally, our last set of categories is miscellaneous, which really represents a grouping of different categories. So Drink at the Well, this first-time funded grantee in our life skills category received $10,000 for general operating expenses. Drink at the Well provides wraparound services for low-income women who are survivors of sexual exploitation, addiction, abuse, and poverty, living in the Curtis Bay area. Drink at the Well does this through several different programs. Our COR, Life Development Program, HUN's, Honey, Social Enterprise that provides employment, a new residency program, and outreach to the community. Then there's the Dundalk Renaissance Corporation. Another first-time funded grantee received $15,000 to support their financial and literacy program. Dundalk Renaissance Financial Literacy and Coaching Project teaches women financial skills, including household budgeting and financing tools that will empower them to make competent financial decisions in meeting their needs and aspirations. The Baltimore Women's Giving Circle funds will allow the Dundalk Renaissance Corporation to serve a larger number of women in the Dundalk area. St. Luke's Youth Center, still another first-time funded grantee in our leadership development category, received $23,545 to support their project, Moms on a Mission. And you know women would get it down to the penny, right? St. Luke's Youth Center is collaborative of families working together with friends, neighbors, and partners to provide their youth with critical resources, life-enriching experiences, and a safety net of support in West Baltimore. The Baltimore Women's Giving Circle funds will support Moms on a Mission, a project in which mothers collaborate to address the issues that affect their children, families, and community. And finally, Thread. In our mentoring category, received $25,000 for general operating expenses. Thread harnesses the power of relationships to create a new social fabric of diverse individuals deeply engaged with young people facing the most difficult, significant opportunity and achievement gaps. The Thread community is committed to ending social isolation and building a more equitable culture in which everyone thrives. Baltimore Women Giving Circles for Thread will target young women living in high poverty neighborhoods, helping them to overcome barriers to attaining their goals by supporting after-school programming and tutoring, post-high school pathway planning, and community service outings and Thread family activities. So that is our new grantees for this year. And thanks again to everyone who participated in this process, from the team leaders to the readers to the voters, to make today totally possible. So now we'd like to introduce you to Marianne Pinkert, who will give you a picture of in numbers of what we just went over.
So some of you will be very familiar with a few of these slides, but we wanted to share the whole process with the people that may not have been involved in the grants process this year. So let's start by looking at the grants review process for this year compared to the previous 4 years. As discussed earlier, we had 90 applications that were divided among 15 teams, and those teams recommended 55 organizations that received site visits. Of the 55 organizations, 45 were recommended for funding. That was 82% of the people, the organizations that we went on site visits for, and that was the highest percentage ever. We were able to fund 26 programs, meaning that 58% of those that were recommended were funded. This next pie chart shows the top 4 categories that we have funded over the past 5 years. Literacy education leads the list, followed by workforce development, housing, and domestic sexual violence. And this is the category breakdown for this year. We stayed very consistent with those top 4 categories, with workforce development edging out literacy education, then housing and domestic sexual violence rounding out the top 4. Next. So this is the bar chart that you've seen every year about this time, and it shows the categories that we funded over the past 6 years. The largest categories have already been talked about. It's workforce development in yellow, literacy education in dark green, domestic sexual violence in light gray at the bottom, and housing, which is the dark gray. Other categories that we funded more or less consistently over those time frame are food and hunger services, healthcare, life skills, and mentoring. This year was the first time we have funded a financial literacy program, and that's that lime green bar on that last column. It's the first time we funded financial literacy since 2016. So this year, we conducted training sessions for the readers and the general managers who planned to vote. We looked at the grant requests we received over the past 5 years by size of organization, and you can see that they were pretty evenly divided among large, medium, grassroots. But if you look at the total grant dollars actually granted to organizations based on their size for the same period, you'll see that we funded grassroots organizations defined as having budgets of less than $250,000, the least of any category. The other 3 categories make up about 30% each. So then we looked at the history for the past 5 years of how grassroots organizations moved through the evaluation process. The results caused us to consider whether we may have an unconscious bias against small organizations. We found that if grassroots organization received a site visit, there was a very good chance that it would be recommended for funding. But the grassroots organizations did not survive well in the voting process. In explaining the data, we stressed we were not suggesting that we give those small organizations any favoritism, but suggested that they might be worthy of a different evaluation lens. So let's add the numbers for 2022. You can see that we had 24 grassroots organizations that applied this year. 16 of them got site visits, and that was the highest percentage ever. Of those 16 who got site visits, 12 were recommended, and 50%, or 6, received enough votes to be funded. So now let's look at how organization size factored into this year's grants. I didn't show a pie chart of the size of the applications that we received, but they were pretty evenly divided so that each of the categories of size each received about 25%. Mid-sized organizations were the smallest category. But you can see that this year, grassroots organizations make up about 23% of those funded this year, much higher than in previous years, with small and large organizations comprising about a third each. There was some concern expressed that in considering grassroots organizations, we would eliminate those larger organizations which are doing great work, but that portion remained consistent with prior years at about 30%. Next. Another highlight of this year's voting is that we funded 11 organizations that we have never funded before. Of those, 4 organizations were funded for the first time. So a whopping 42% of the organizations were funded for the first time, compared to about 21% last year. That is a really remarkable accomplishment, especially considering that we have a 20-year history of grantees that could have qualified as being previously funded. It's also noteworthy that the organization's funding history was not readily available to the voters. The remainder of this chart shows the number of times grantees we had previously funded were funded before this year. And so ends another very successful grant cycle for the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle.
Shifting.
And now it's time for Penny and Carol to announce the new slate of officers and committee co-chairs.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm waking you up. My name is Penny Wold, and along with Carol Doctorow and Lisa Field, I was co-chair with them on the nominating committee this year. Our role on the Nominating and Leadership Development Committee is to identify and nominate circle members to be considered as circle officer positions, and also to identify and recommend members for committee co-chair appointments. The officers of the circle must be ratified by the full circle. The ratification vote was held electronically, and amongst the 192 members who voted, the slate was approved unanimously. So, with no further ado, a drum roll, right? The nominating committee is pleased to present the following slate of officers for the 2022-24 period. We're thrilled that the next circle co-chairs will be Ann Daniels and Sally Ward. They are a dynamic duo with years of involvement and dedication to the circle. We're so fortunate to have them leading us as we find our new normal in this post-COVID world. We're delighted that Pam Pasqualini will assume the role of assistant treasurer this year and will step into the treasurer's role in 2023. Kelly Chu, who served as assistant treasurer during this past year, will serve as treasurer next year. We're also delighted that Jane Meyer will assume the role of archivist for 1 year and will step into the role of secretary for 2023. Leslie Glickman has served as archivist during the past year and will serve as secretary the next year. So we thank Anne and Sally, Kelly and Pam, Leslie and Jane for accepting these important roles on behalf of all of us at the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle.
We are also pleased to announce the following committee co-chairs. Lynn Bryans will join Jennifer Bedford as co-chair of membership. Judy Dobbs will join Sylvia Gollenbeck as co-chair of Grantee Connect. Barbara Epke will join Robin Kaplan as co-chair of Post Grants. Susan Hovanek will join Penny Wald as co-chair of Nominating. Carmina Hughes will join Jane Burkow as co-chair of Grants. Joyce Moskovitz will join Peggy Spar as co-chair of Communications. Dana Murray will join Susan Manikin as co-chair of Education. And Vivian Manikin and Cricket Wallison will continue as co-chairs of Ready. So thank you all for your willingness to serve the circle in these leadership roles. Next, I want to thank our awesome nominating committee who conducted interviews of past and current circle leadership, served as liaisons to other circle committees, and participated in meetings to evaluate and select candidates for officer and committee co-chair positions. They are Lissa Abrams, Day Bank, Renee Gordon, Susan Hovanek, Lucia Kersner, Sabine Oishi, and Carol Yoder. It was a pleasure working with these thoughtful and capable women. Finally, I personally want to thank two extraordinary women. Penny Wald was such a stellar co-chair. She jumped into the role with both feet. She was beyond capable at organizing and leading the nominating committee, and also enormously creative in finding ways for the committee to operate both more efficiently and more effectively. And when I was diagnosed with a serious illness in December, knew I'd need surgery, but didn't know how much more treatment I would need beyond that, Penny took it in stride, reassured me, and continued to move the committee forward in its work with the good-natured and expert assistance of Lisa Field, who, after serving on nominating for 4 years, including 2 years as co-chair, had finally rotated off the committee and was enjoying some extra well-deserved time with her family, but agreed to fill in for me and join Penny in co-chairing the NLDC. Lisa couldn't be here today, but I want you all to know what incredible women and leaders she and Penny are. I can't thank them enough for their devotion to the circle, their hard work on behalf of the nominating committee, and their support and friendship.
Thank you so much. That's just so exciting to have our new co-chairs. But I can't let this meeting end without saying a few words about Susan. No one could ever have had a better partner. She's not just smart, she's wise. She's creative. She has a great sense of humor. She's an all-around wonderful human being. It's been such a pleasure to work with her, and I treasure our having worked together, and I treasure our friendship. Thank you, Susan.
Well, over the past 2 years, I've probably spoken to Martha more than my own husband, who I live with. She's become my best friend, and we've shared incredible circumstances over the last 2 years. I've always thought of myself as pretty organized, but Martha put me to shame. She is very smart, she's funny, she is very persistent, and she's always been supportive. We've shared a strong passion for the circle, and it's been a true pleasure to work together in guiding the circle. And now we want to welcome Ann Daniels and Sally Ward to the best job ever. And what a great pair they will be. Have fun and learn a lot.
Ann and Sally, it's your turn.
Oh, glasses. We all need glasses. Well, first of all, thank you, Susan and Martha. We are very excited. We really couldn't be more honored to be the new co-chairs of the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, and thank you all so much for your votes of confidence, all the notes and emails we received, and today, hugs actually in person with people. It's really great to see everybody here. We just want to say that we owe Martha and Susan, all of us, a huge debt of gratitude for their leadership through the past 2 years. No leader knows what's coming next, but I think COVID certainly takes the cake for surprises. They handled it with aplomb, and they did all they could to make sure that we all felt connected in as many ways as possible during this time of forced isolation. I cannot imagine a tougher 2 years under which to lead the circle, or two members who have handled it so well. We are all immensely grateful to you both for your leadership. I would say we have big shoes to fill, but their feet are really tiny. But we do have big shoes to fill. Before I turn it over to Sally, I just want to let everyone know that in about 2 weeks, you're going to be receiving a membership survey. This is something that has come to us through Impact 100 Philadelphia. They do an annual survey of their members, asking for feedback about how things are going, what they think's going well, and what they think they might like to change. And we think it's a great idea. So there's been an amazing committee that's been working on this. And we really hope that when you get the survey, you will please take the time to fill it out, because the questions come directly from the co-chairs of the committees, and we want and need your feedback. I just want to mention the committee. They are Leslie Glickman, Lisa Field, Pat Lasher, Katie Leakin, Vivian Manikin, Kathy Newman, Marianne Pinkert, Susan Tallis, Mary Jo Weiss, and Cricket Willison. Thank you for all your work, and everyone, look forward to that survey. So now I'd like to turn it over to my co-chair.
Have to dig out my notes. So, Martha, Cuckor, and Susan Perl have been fantastic leaders for us for the past 2 years, especially in these unprecedented times. The steering committee traditionally recognizes the service of the outgoing circle co-chairs with a gift. The nominating committee, nominating and leadership development committee is responsible for selecting the gift. This year, Martha and Susan are receiving memento boxes, especially designed by Beth Schwartz, a local artist and circle member. There are also contributions made in their honor to the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle Grants Fund. The steering committee members who served with Martha and Susan over this year and last year were asked to write personal notes to Martha and Susan. It could have been a favorite memory or something we admire about Martha and Susan. So it is with my pleasure I give you Martha and Susan your gift. And if you want to open it and hold it up.
Yes, we want to see what they are.
You don't need to read all the notes right now.
Oh, this is fabulous. Oh, look at this. It's beautiful. Two for tea. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Thank you. What a wonderful thing. We so appreciate this, and thank you to everybody who contributed, and we just...
You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. I have a few closing words. Before I invite everyone to the celebrating reception, I want to take a moment to recognize the hard work of the membership committee and all members that have worked so hard to spread the word about the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle and what a wonderful organization we are. As been mentioned already, we have 469 members, moving to that 500. And we have 61 new members this year, since June. Would the new members from this year who are here please stand up so we can recognize you? New members, before you leave, there are little miniature roses on the tables, and would you each get to take one, new members, as a thank you for joining us and spreading the word. Are any of the new members one of our young philanthropists, our under 45 members? Are any of you? No? Okay. Well, please remember, Jeannie, but please remember we have that new membership category for those young ladies you know who want to join us, and it's more acceptable to do it at that price point. And I also want to thank everyone who's joining us through technology for this meeting. We thank all of you who are here in person and on Zoom, but now it's party time. So please join us to raise a glass to salute our wonderful outgoing members and our incoming leaders. So thank you so much for being with us. The nominating committee did that. I didn't do that.
How great can
You're
that
done.
be?
You're done.
I know, I'm like giddy.